A millionaire abandoned her disabled daughter and disappeared. 25 years later, she fell on her knees from what happened in court. In the heart of a bustling metropolis, where glass towers kissed the clouds, a celebrated millionaire named Eleanor March made a decision that would haunt her for a lifetime. She was at the pinnacle of her career, a titan of finance, known for her razor-sharp intellect and unrelenting ambition. Yet, behind the sparkling facade of wealth and success, a storm brewed. Shortly after the birth of her daughter, Sarah, who was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, Eleanor succumbed to societal pressures and personal fears. Her picture-perfect image, meticulously constructed over decades, would crumble under the weight of raising a disabled child, or so she believed. Under the guise of a business trip, she left, never to return to the hospital. 25 years later, Eleanor would find herself on her knees in a courtroom, shattered by the consequences of that decision, her past laid bare for the world to judge. Eleanor had been unprepared for the storm of emotions that came with Sarah's birth. The diagnosis was swift, delivered by a somber-faced doctor. Sarah would require specialized care for the rest of her life. Eleanor's husband, David, was devastated but resolute, vowing to face the challenges head-on. Eleanor, however, stood paralyzed between maternal instincts and the suffocating fear of what this meant for her pristine social image. David took charge of Sarah's care from the outset. A quiet, steadfast man, he began learning about physical therapy routines, special education, and emotional support systems. But Eleanor, unable to reconcile her dreams of unbridled ambition with the demands of parenting a disabled child, withdrew. Soon, her absence became permanent. With a tear-streaked note explaining she couldn't be the mother Sarah needed, Eleanor boarded a private jet to Europe, leaving David and Sarah behind as she stepped into a whirlwind of high-profile meetings and glittering parties. For Sarah, the absence of a mother was more than a physical void. It was a wound that festered through childhood. Though David was a loving parent, tirelessly advocating for her education and medical needs, Sarah couldn't escape the sense of being unwanted. The whispers of schoolmates and the pitying glances of strangers reinforced her fears. Eleanor, on the other hand, buried herself in a gilded world of luxury. Interviews and magazine covers portrayed her as the epitome of empowerment, a woman who had sacrificed everything to succeed. But Eleanor's success came at a steep emotional cost. Late at night, after the champagne flutes were emptied and the applause faded, guilt crept into the edges of her carefully curated life. Eleanor's new life was a dazzling spectacle of achievement and affluence. She became a household name in the financial world, her portfolio booming with investments that others envied. She lived in a penthouse that overlooked the city skyline, attended exclusive galas, and dined with dignitaries. The media lauded her as a trailblazer, a symbol of modern success. But her prosperity was haunted by the specter of Sarah. Eleanor convinced herself that her departure had been an act of necessity. "I gave her a chance for a better life," she rationalized, believing that David's grounded nature would provide a stable environment. Yet, the loneliness that crept into her luxurious chambers was undeniable. Pictures of happy families in magazines brought pangs of regret, swiftly silenced by her relentless drive for success. For Sarah, life was a battle against a world that saw her disability before her potential. David became her rock, sacrificing his career aspirations to be her primary caregiver. Together, they navigated hospitals, therapy sessions, and the labyrinth of special education. Sarah's wheelchair became both her greatest challenge and her emblem of resilience. The emotional toll was immense. Sarah often wondered about her mother, why she left, whether she thought of her, and if she regretted her decision. Her peers, unfiltered in their cruelty, asked questions that dug deep into her insecurities. Yet, through it all, Sarah persevered, bolstered by David's unwavering belief in her abilities. Despite her hardships, Sarah grew into a remarkable young woman. Her sharp intellect and empathetic nature made her a standout student. She pursued higher education, earning degrees in social work and advocacy for disabled rights. Her passion turned into a profession as she became a vocal advocate for others like her, shining a light on issues often overlooked by society. Sarah's achievements brought her into the public eye. She was invited to speak at conferences, awarded for her contributions, and celebrated as a beacon of hope for those with disabilities. Each accolade was a testament to her determination, but it also amplified the silent ache of her unanswered questions about Eleanor. Sarah's life took an unexpected turn when her story caught the attention of a prominent journalist. A feature article chronicled her journey from abandonment to advocacy, painting her as an inspiring figure who defied all odds. The article went viral, with media outlets clamoring for interviews. Sarah's face graced magazine covers, and she became a celebrated name in the world of social justice. But with recognition came curiosity about her past. Questions arose about her mother's absence. Speculation about Eleanor's identity gained traction, and whispers of her abandonment reached the public. Eleanor's carefully crafted image began to crack as her association with Sarah's story became impossible to ignore. Eleanor was jolted out of her cocoon of privilege when she saw Sarah's face on the evening news. The name she had tried to forget was now a headline. The accompanying narrative, a mother who had abandoned her disabled child for a life of luxury, cast her as a villain in the court of public opinion. Panic set in. Eleanor grappled with conflicting emotions. The guilt she had suppressed for decades clashed with a desperate instinct for self-preservation. Her advisors urged her to stay silent, but the weight of her conscience grew unbearable. Memories of Sarah as a baby, her tiny hands clutching Eleanor's finger, resurfaced, leaving her sleepless and on edge. For Sarah, the attention on her story brought an unexpected opportunity. A legal team approached her, offering to help her hold Eleanor accountable for abandoning her. At first, Sarah hesitated. She had spent years building a life defined by her strength, not her pain. But the chance to seek justice and answers proved too compelling to ignore. When the lawsuit was filed, it sent shockwaves through the media. Eleanor, facing potential ruin, knew she had to act. She prepared for the legal battle, but the emotional stakes loomed larger than any courtroom judgment. Sarah, too, steeled herself, knowing that this confrontation was about more than legalities. It was about confronting the mother who had shaped her life through absence. The courtroom was packed, reporters lining the benches as spectators waited for the drama to unfold. At the center of the storm sat Eleanor, impeccably dressed but visibly tense, her polished exterior a fragile mask. Across from her sat Sarah, composed yet resolute, her wheelchair parked beside her attorney's table. The trial began with the prosecution laying out Sarah's story, a child abandoned by a mother who chose wealth and image over love and responsibility. Witnesses testified about Sarah's struggles, the sacrifices her father made, and the profound emotional scars left by Eleanor's absence. But it was Sarah's own testimony that silenced the room. "I've spent my life wondering why I wasn't enough," Sarah said, her voice steady but thick with emotion. "But I've learned that my worth isn't determined by someone else's choices. This isn't just about abandonment. It's about accountability." When it was Eleanor's turn to take the stand, her polished facade began to crumble. She stammered through her defense, citing societal pressures and her fear of inadequacy. But under cross-examination, her guilt spilled over. "I was selfish," Eleanor admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I was afraid of what people would think of me. I thought I couldn't handle the responsibility, so I ran. And not a day has passed that I haven't regretted it." The courtroom held its breath as Eleanor turned to Sarah. Her voice cracked. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything." She fell to her knees, sobbing, her polished image shattered for all to see. The judge's ruling was firm but fair. Eleanor was ordered to pay substantial financial reparations, much of which Sarah vowed to donate to organizations supporting disabled individuals. The court also mandated a public acknowledgement of Eleanor's actions, ensuring that her legacy would include the truth about her past. As the verdict was read, Sarah felt a wave of conflicting emotions, vindication, sorrow, and a glimmer of closure. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, reporters rushing to file their stories. Eleanor sat silently, her face a portrait of despair and remorse, as Sarah wheeled herself out, victorious but emotionally drained. In the weeks following the trial, Eleanor took steps she had avoided for decades. Publicly, she acknowledged her wrongdoing, penning a heartfelt letter published in a leading newspaper. "I failed as a mother," she wrote, "but I will spend the rest of my life trying to make amends." Privately, Eleanor reached out to Sarah. She wrote her a letter, the words trembling with sincerity. "I know I can never undo the hurt I caused. I don't ask for forgiveness, only the chance to know you, even a little." Eleanor began volunteering at organizations that supported families with disabled children. She donated anonymously to causes Sarah championed. These acts were small steps, but they reflected her genuine desire to change. When Sarah received Eleanor's letter, she was torn. Years of abandonment had built walls around her heart, and forgiveness felt like betraying the pain she had endured. Yet, as she reflected on her journey, she realized that holding on to anger had shaped her as much as her resilience. Seeking counsel from David, her father, Sarah shared her conflict. "You've built a life you're proud of," he told her. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself from the weight of the past." After much deliberation, Sarah wrote back to Eleanor. Her words were measured yet sincere. "I don't know if I can forgive you, but I'm willing to meet and see if we can move forward, even a little." Their meeting took place in a quiet park, far from the prying eyes of the media. Eleanor approached Sarah hesitantly, her usual confidence replaced with vulnerability. Sarah sat waiting, her posture rigid with uncertainty. The conversation was tentative, each word carefully chosen. Eleanor apologized again, her voice trembling as she recounted the fears and failings that led to her abandonment. Sarah listened, her expression unreadable, until she finally spoke. "I don't know if we can ever have a real relationship," Sarah said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "But maybe this is a start." They sat in silence for a while, the weight of years between them. As they parted, Eleanor reached out, not for forgiveness, but for a connection. Sarah hesitated before accepting her hand, a cautious but monumental gesture. Months later, Eleanor stood on stage at a charity gala organized to benefit disabled advocacy groups. Sarah had been invited as the guest of honor, her achievements celebrated before an audience of philanthropists and public figures. As the event reached its peak, Eleanor was called to the podium. The crowd murmured, curious to see the woman who had become a symbol of both failure and redemption. Eleanor's voice wavered as she began. "Tonight, we honor individuals like my daughter, Sarah, who inspire us with their courage and resilience. But I also stand here as a reminder of the harm caused by neglect and fear. I abandoned my daughter when she needed me most. Yet despite my failures, she has become someone extraordinary." Eleanor turned to Sarah, who sat in the front row. "I'm proud of you, Sarah. And I'm sorry." The room erupted in applause, but the true acknowledgement was in Sarah's faint, bittersweet smile. The journey toward reconciliation was slow and fraught with setbacks. Eleanor and Sarah began meeting occasionally, their conversations cautious but genuine. Eleanor took an interest in Sarah's work, attending her speeches and quietly supporting her initiatives. For Sarah, trust came incrementally. She appreciated Eleanor's efforts but maintained boundaries to protect herself emotionally. Their relationship wasn't idyllic, but it was real, built on mutual effort and a shared hope for a better future. David, who had been both father and mother to Sarah, remained a grounding presence. Though he harbored resentment toward Eleanor, he encouraged Sarah's cautious optimism. "What matters is that you're at peace with your choices," he told her. On a sunny afternoon, Sarah invited Eleanor to one of her advocacy workshops. Watching Sarah speak to a room full of young people with disabilities, Eleanor felt an overwhelming sense of pride and awe. As the event ended, Sarah approached her mother. "I'm not sure what the future holds for us," she said, "but I'm willing to keep trying." Eleanor nodded, tears welling in her eyes. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a beginning. For the first time in years, both women felt a sense of hope, one rooted not in the past, but in the possibilities of the future. Life is often a tapestry woven from choices, some intentional, others born from fear. Eleanor's story serves as a cautionary tale of the damage wrought by abandonment, while Sarah's journey is a testament to the strength found in resilience. Through pain and perseverance, Sarah transformed her struggles into advocacy, lighting a path for others like her. Her decision to confront Eleanor wasn't just about justice, but about reclaiming the narrative of her life. Eleanor, too, learned that redemption requires accountability and humility. Their story reminds us that even the deepest wounds can begin to heal with courage and effort. What would you do if faced with a decision like Eleanor's? How do we balance forgiveness and accountability in our own lives? Stories like this prompt us to examine not only the choices we make, but also the relationships we cherish. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you experienced moments of reconciliation or faced struggles that tested your strength? Share your story in the comments below. Your voice might inspire someone else to take a step toward healing. If this story moved you, there are many more to explore. Subscribe to our channel for narratives about resilience, redemption, and the power of human connection.